Welcome back to another Meta Snapshot. This time the Skybound Dragons have officially released. Now we are only a few days in, but that's not going to perturb me from bringing you an interesting Meta Snapshot to get an idea of some of the early decks that are forming, and also to get an idea about kind of where the power levels might end up being. Do bear in mind that obviously it is very, very early on in this set. So of course, you know, take it with a pinch of salt. Things are definitely going to change. We're going to know a lot more next week, but I've got some spicy things. I put a lot of effort into this one, so I hope you're really going to enjoy it. And some of you have been asking how you can support the channel. You can, if you're watching this on YouTube, join and become a guild member and, you know, essentially throw me a beer. Or whatever you like. I usually invest the money that I make from this channel back into the channel to make it better anyway. But if you've got no pounds to toss, as we say in the UK, then don't worry about it. I didn't have any money for the most of my life either, so I don't want to make anybody feel bad about that. You can subscribe to the channel. That's all free, and I appreciate it massively. So with that said, let's jump on into this week's Meta Snapshot. Okay, so in Tier 4, I've got Artifact, Stormhaven, and Abysscraft. I don't know, as in Aggro Abyss. Now, I don't know how good some of the new variants of Storm are going to be. If I'm honest, I haven't had a chance to play it in the 48 hours or whatever that the game's been out, Set 4's been out. But I do think that there are some pretty good additions in the new set for Storm, so keep an eye out on that one, guys. It could well go up. Artifact is still to prove itself, although it did get a few nice cards. I think the cards were very powerful. I just don't know that the archetype is quite ready yet to make a reappearance. But, you know, let me know in the comments if you're having massive success with Artifact Hybrid. I'd love to know. And the reason why I've got Aggro Abyss there is because I still think it's suffering from the fact that, you know, since the injection of heal into the meta, that I feel like this deck dropped off quite a bit. However, that said, we did just get the nerf to Manning Benison. That was probably the biggest heal card in the game. And maybe there's a bit of a window for this type of archetype to come back. However, Abysscraft is enjoying many different archetypes, and I just don't think this one's going to get a look in much this season. So in Tier 3, we've got the OTK Dragon, or Miracle Dragon. This is where we're basically sifting through our deck as quick as possible to either Fenny into a cheap Cocytus, followed by Jerry, followed by Cocytus, followed by Tablet, and we just win the game instantly. The other OTK there is that you hit Cocytus first, and you basically use Zell to get a 23 damage OTK. So it's a great deck. It's one of my favorite fun concepts from last season, but I do think it's going to struggle a little bit more this season because I think we're going to have much heavier boards to deal with. Now, Evo Tempo Forest is new. Obviously, we've had Tempo Fairy in the past, and we have got the evolution mechanic now, or evolution decks, which are based around the Skybound art mechanic. And I've got a really cool deck which came from Toby, who, as you know, if you watch this channel, got all the respect in the world for that guy. I think he's one of the best deck builders in the game. And yeah, really look forward to showing you a deck that Toby came up with. After that, we got Azudia Control. Now, as you know, my mate Barrick, my guild member and good friend who just won the Shadowverse Open Grand Finals. And so happy for him. And he's already made some tweaks with a new card, so stay tuned. We're going to look at that. And then there's Mid-Range Sword. And of course, with mid-range, you can lean slightly more into the aggro version of mid-range, or you can go into slightly more grindy versions. I've actually got a couple of versions to show you there. So let's jump into those decks before we come back for tiers 1 and 2. Okay, so Evo Tempo Forest. As I said, this is a little concoction that came from Toby, and this deck is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Basically, you have got things like Coppertan and Glade to obviously clear boards in the mid game and to kind of bridge. And what we've got here is lots of ways to evolve. Obviously, we've got Vryn. I really like Vryn, by the way. This card is pretty cool. Like, it's pretty standard 2/2 on 2, just what you want. But in the late game, just a free Evo. Nothing too fancy, but just a 4/4 Evo once Super Evo is unlocked. And I think it's nothing too flashy, but it's very functional in these types of decks. Who I basically drew the ticket for. So I've now got the wallpaper and the leader set for this. Yeah. Sorry, I drew 2 tickets with this season. I don't know what's going on with the tickets, guys. I never draw tickets, and this season I've drawn like 4 tickets. Anyway, that's not what you're here for. What you are here for is to understand how this deck works. So basically, what we want to do is evo as much as we can. The Utel Society is amazing on 5. You play this down. Not 5, sorry. You play this down on Super Evo, right? On 6, and then the next 4 turns, the first card you play basically evolves, which is just absolutely nuts. Like you're just evolving every turn. Like Capitan, you just play Capitan, however you want to say it. You play that thing down, and it just evolves and does 7 damage. It's just like, it's so good. And then of course, once you finish with all this madness. Oh yeah, Comet Drive's brilliant in this deck, by the way, because it's a 4 removal, and it's almost guaranteed to draw every turn, because you're just evolving every turn with this deck. And then you've got Iwa to actually obviously give you Evo points back as well. So I think this is one of the decks where you can probably Evo the most. It's phenomenal, like how many Evos and Super Evos you can do. Absolutely crazy. And of course, why does that matter? Because we've got Sandalph in. Sandy comes out and just wins you the game. Really cool deck. It's really, really cool. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how he develops this deck. Okay, Zudia OTK, I was going to say the world champion, but the grand finals champion of the SVO, Barrett himself, has been tinkering away, and this is what he's come up with so far. Now, obviously, he has only had obviously a couple of days, and I imagine that he will evolve this even further. But that said, this deck is pretty scary because, you know, obviously when you play an OTK, it's all about the consistency of getting it. And when you look at some of the tools that we've got, like Lyria being able to draw our clutch cards like Zudia and our heal, right, and our kind of scary congruent. And now we've also got, in addition to things like Hamlet and Garden of Lure, which were our main draw engines, we've also now got the Grand 4 drop, right, which can draw 2 cards for us as well. So we've just got even more consistency on driving through the deck. And yeah, other than that, the kind of base shell is there. The Iwa is pretty good. I think Barrick is actually running 3 copies of this and not running the crew and you. I actually put that in myself, just that one change, because I think that by having extra Evo points, that this is a good target for it, for that emergency heal. But either way, the point is that this gives you really clutch Evo points back. And so one of the problems that Izudia used to have is that it used to get pressured really, really hard and were forced to use your Evo points. And then, of course, you couldn't do your Super Evo Carbuncle finish because you'd run out of points. Whereas now you can kind of use your Evos to keep up on board a bit more freely, because you know you're going to get to recharge them. So subtle tweaks to this deck, but given that we've already seen how amazing it can be piloted, this is really cool, and I'm looking forward to definitely testing this deck out more. It's towards that high end of tier 3, but I think it's a much better tournament deck, this, because it does prey on some of the really, really top decks, and it could well be end up being even a tier 2 deck on ladder if that consistency proves out. Next up, we got Mid Sword. Now, I've brought you a deck here, which is really interesting. It reached Grandmaster very, very quickly and then went on a 12 win streaks, which is, at this stage, is like, that's pretty phenomenal. It's kind of interesting. It's got quite a lot of, it's quite an aggressive mid-range deck. We have got the Gildarias and the Luminous Mages in there, making use of the new Zeta and Beta, which I think is a fantastic 4-drop, but without sacrificing Zirconia. So actually now we've got some solid options and flexibility in the mid game. In addition to that, with Randall and Mordred, you actually have quite a bit of Storm, like cheaper Storm units as well. You can still do the Ambush Val setup for for an Odin or into an Albert, and then you've got the Ravening Tentacles as well to finish off. So if you want a deck that just kind of builds the board with a steady curve, I think this deck looks really interesting. I haven't personally played it yet, but as I say, the person who did pilot this, getting to Grandmaster with a 12 win streak really this early in the season, is pretty impressive. Next up, we have got a slightly later game version. So if you wanted to see what a version with the Golden Knight was in, because I knew if I just showed you that, people would be like, oh, we want to see some of the Golden Knight. So this is kind of like how it changes if you want to put the Knight in and play it slightly later. You put the draw in, and then you got the new 4-drop as well. Yeah, that's just it's a slightly alternative version. I think this also went on a decent win streak. So 2 different versions there for you. You got the QR codes. I'll let you decide. Let me know how you get on with that one in the comments. All right, so let's take a look at Tier 2. And oh, how the crests have fallen. Okay, Cresthaven has obviously been hit. Why has he been hit? Because, well, 2 things really. But the main thing is that the heal nerf, right, with the Maddening Benison. So Crest is still a good deck, guys. Let's make no mistake about it. This deck is still very, very powerful and very, very capable of climbing. I'm interested to see where it lands. I'm not confident at the minute. I got it in Tier 2. I don't think it's fallen further than that. But let's see. You know, it's early days. I'll show you how the deck, I think, adapts with the new changes and looking at the new meta. I think this deck's going to look quite a bit different, and we'll come on to that in a minute. Combo Roach is going to be in a really interesting spot on ladder this season because it absolutely sucks against Wardhaven. And for that alone, there's Wardhavens everywhere, so Combo Roach could end up being Tier 3 if we're thinking about it as ladder. However, I just can't bring myself to do that because you've got to remember that even though it has one of the worst binary matchups in Haven, it still can deal with spell boost rune pretty well, and a lot of these like late game decks as well that are looking to use the arts. I mean, Combo Roach is going to love that. So I'm hesitant. As I say, it's very early on, but I'm gonna keep it in Tier 2 for now. Now, Mode Abyss, I think towards the end of the season, last season, I thought it was in this place that was between Tier 1 and 2. I think it comes down a tiny bit. I still think it's a very, very powerful deck, though, and we've already got people that have climbed into GM very early with it. Similarly with Mid Abyss, I think Mid Abyss is a deck that hasn't really changed, doesn't even need to change. You can lift the version that was doing very well at the end of last season and last set, and it will do just as well. I saw someone climb, I think, within 24 hours into GM with it, so we know it's still very powerful. And it's, you know, it's this standard kind of no messing about deck, I call it. You know, it's not interested in all these new super fancy keywords. It just puts things down on the board every turn and beats face, and yeah, dictates the board and kind of wins. Puppet Portal, I think, has received some really nice tools in this set. It was already a good deck. Again, this was the other deck that Barrick piloted, remember, to win the SVO Open, and I actually think it's got more consistent. There's some really good tools that have been added, making this deck more powerful. And next up, we've got Evo Abyss. Belial has hit the scene, and similarly to when we talked about Evo Tempo Forest earlier, this is a Abyss version that makes use of evolving every 2 seconds, right? And leaning into the Belial finisher and Sandy finisher. This deck is very powerful, guys. Honest to God, this might even be Tier 1. I am really going to be keeping an eye on this deck as we progress, as the meta progresses. There are a lot of people playing this deck at GM right now already, so it could well end up being Tier 1, but right now I've got it towards the top of Tier 2. All right, let's look at the deck. Start with Cresthaven. So this is the new look Cresthaven, guys. I feel as though what we started to see towards the end was Rodeo coming in anyway, and with the new Delafil amulet that came out, which instead of like Dose doing 4 damage, actually can remove a unit, hard remove a unit. I think that's really critical in this meta. There's a lot more big bodies that are going to be on the battlefield, and so Delafil, I think, is going to be pretty clutch amulet in this meta. And so Rodeo pulling that, also pulling things like the Tablet of Tribulations, without you having to put things down to play this so that you go down to 1 card in the deck. You can actually just pull this from Rodeo, so it's pretty cool. What is new then? So apart from that, we've got second temple in, and we've brought Ruler Kakaitis back in. So bringing in a kind of a strong wink on towards the end of the game. The deck still does fantastic at controlling with the crest tools, and the Maddening Benison we are still running some, because I think at the end of the day, this deck would just I think the deck would just struggle if it didn't have any heal. I think it'd be too easy to beat down. You can't really afford to spend Evos and Super Evos on Gilnaleases in this deck either, because that's how you get your crests in play. So I still think that Maddening is going to have to be played, but it's going to be played much more of a niche within the deck now. And there may well be times where you have to do it and try and get the Temple combo off by putting a barrier on your Lord so you don't take the 10 on your follower, on your leader, so you don't take the 10 damage. Next up, we got Mode Abyss. Now, as you can see, Mode Abyss is pretty similar to where it was. This deck, someone piloted to, I think it was a 15 win streak, which is pretty impressive. Now, the big changes really are, one, we've got Baal in here, which is a 3-drop, which deals 3 damage to a random enemy follower, or it can give +1/+1 to itself and another unit. I think on 3, that's really, really good, right? Because you've got that on 3, Supplicant on 4, and that means you can just keep controlling the board really well in the early game. I think that's really nice. Then you've got the Devotee for Go Wide and Gilnalease. So Mode Abyss is still very, very strong, guys. Don't make any mistake about it. One of the things that's very interesting here is that we've got 3 copies of Valiant Edge. Now, Valiant Edge, you're probably thinking, what the heck does that card even do? So basically, what it does is you play the card down, and it gives you a 2-turn crest, which says at the end of your turn, deal 2 damage to a random enemy follower and restore 1 defense to your leader. It deals 2 damage to your leader, and then you basically recoup that damage over the 2 turns. It's a very fancy way of saying that for 2, you deal 4 damage. However, it's kind of interesting because rather than just 2 deal 4 damage, it's like dealing 2 damage across 2 turns is quite an interesting mechanic, because like we just said, things like Baal, for example, that can come on and deal 3 damage, well, all of a sudden you can calculate that as dealing 5 damage. You can deal with bigger minions, and because we're in this meta now where I think we are going to have more minions on board, this might be quite an interesting secret little tech to help you with clearing the boards. So again, 15 win streak, I'm not going to argue, looks really good. Mid Abyss, not too much to say here, guys. This is a pretty, it's a pretty standard version of Mid Abyss, but we have brought in the new 7-drop, obviously, bringing back a bringing back a 2 and a 1-drop and evolving them is pretty powerful. And really, that's the only addition to the deck. And obviously, having some sticky units like the Undead Soldier is going to be good for being targets for that. Obviously, we've got Mino, but if you actually look at the composition, it's not much different other than the 7-drop to where it was at the end of last season. So just a really powerful, straightforward climber. Next up, we got Puppet Portal. Now, this is a version that I've been playing around with, and it's been taking names. It's a very, very good deck. We take the Puppet Portal, and what have we added? Well, we have added Lyria in there just at the end, towards the end game. I don't really want it in the early game because Puppets have so many good early cards, but being able to pull those big units at the end of the game, it was often where Puppet Portal would fail, right? You'd fall short, you'd do so well, but you just couldn't draw your Orcuses or you couldn't draw your Liams. Well, obviously, Lyria is really going to help with that. I've got a single copy of the Stonebearer in there. I do think that card is very, very good at 3 cost. But we don't necessarily need 3 copies because we've got such good removal in the early game. But actually, it can be really good slightly later on where you play this and combine it with something. So I've got 1 copy in there. I've also got the new 4 cost here, the Greta Gran Angita. Sorry, I can't speak today. Gran Angita is a very cool card that's been added in this set. A lot of decks are running this card, guys, because it gives you the removal, dealing 5 damage. It can even kill like a Valse that's hiding in ambush, right? But at the same time, it's very good for just drawing through your deck. And again, what this deck is all about is getting the consistency of drawing those powerful draws at the end, and that's what's going to drive your win rate up. Now, we've also got a copy of the Chaos Legion in here. I do think Chaos Legion is a very good card because once we get well, because first of all, it's an AoE that does 3 damage, but it does 3 damage to enemy face too, so it's just adding to the pressure. This deck puts so much pressure on an opponent's face with Orcus and Liam, so Chaos Legion just adds to that. And if we get the super Skybound art off, then we actually do 6 damage, which is just phenomenal. Now, the one of the cards that, you know, not everybody's going to be running this, but I would quite like this 7-drop, to be honest with you. Why do I like it? I think that it can do 4 damage to 3 different units, right? So if you think about these board states that we're seeing at the minute, where lot more bodies than we had in set 3 on board, being able to just come down and deal 4 damage 3 times without even evoing is really, really good. Then you can evo super evo if you need to finish something off. So it's like quite a nice little board clear for mid-range units. It can also just deal 4 damage to the enemy leader. So if your opponent's spent their turn getting rid of your previous board, you can just bring this on, put 4 damage on, and then go into Orcus the next turn, which often is enough to win you the game. Obviously, we got the 2 copies of Liam and the 3 copies of Orcus, not much to say there, but then we have the 2 copies of Beelzebub. Now, guys, this is just... I love this card. It's very good in Egg Portal, but it's also very good here as well. Because apart from obviously being an amazing removal, dealing 9 damage to 2 units and removing their abilities, it's also the fact that it gives the enemy leader takes 1 more damage ability, or disability is probably a better word for it. But of course that makes all the difference when you then Orcus, because every time you hit with a puppet, every hit gets an additional 1 damage. Similarly with Liam, right? When all the puppets die and they deal damage to face, it's another +1 damage. So honestly, I just think that puppets just was strong anyway, and it's got even stronger. It may end up being tier 1, guys. I'm pretty hyped on this, to be honest. But let me know how you're finding it, and if I'm missing anything that's kind of like really holding this deck back, then let me know down below in the comments. Okay, Evo Abyss. Guys, this is the spicy new Abyss craft deck that is making use of Belial, and it is a good one. So we've already talked about Evo Tempo Forest, where the idea is to try and get as many free Evos off as possible so we can trigger the Skybound arcs. Well, this is exactly what we're trying to do with this deck as well. So when you look at it, we've got Vrin, which, as I said, is a nice 2/2, and once you are in the Super Evo phase, you can just play this and it evos itself for free. You've got the nice early game with the Mina and the Ghostly Soiree. This is also banking you 1-drops as well, because you get skeletons from here, similar with the Winged Servant. If you can get the Bats down, as 1-drops which obviously have drain, so that's some of your heal, you can bring those back later and evolve them when you play the 7-drop, which is Fidel, who basically is going to reanimate a 2-drop and a 1-drop and then evolve them, right? So that means that a bat is coming on as a 3/3 rush, essentially giving you 3 heal, which is just absolutely brilliant. In addition, we've got Little Bone Mancer, another sticky unit in the 3-drops, and again putting a 1-costed follower in the graveyard for us to bring back with, as we just mentioned. Next up, you've also got the Satia, the 3/3 for 3. I really like this card because it's got Aura, and Aura is one of, I think it's a really potent keyword. It's quite sparse as well. There's not much Aura in the game at the minute. This card's really cool because it says if there's an evolved ally on the field, evolve this follower. So this is another one that you can quite easily combine with. I mean, you can even evo like a skeleton and then just play this, and you're getting double evo value if you like. So it's really, really cool. I'm a big fan of this card. And next up, we have got the draw card, the Gran and Jita, as we said. But the big thing, really, getting into the new cards, is we play Nihan. Now, Nihan basically evolves all unevolved followers, and that's why some of these sticky units that we put on the board, they really benefit from Nihan. Not only that, but he not only does he evolve them so that they can attack with, +2, and rush if you've just played them, but he has this ability where he deals 2 damage to self, but he basically has drain. Now, he also evolves himself, so he becomes a 4/6, and that means that he's actually going to have a net heal 2, if that makes sense, because deals 2 to your own face, and then he heals 4 when he attacks with his drain. And then the big finishers in the deck. So it's really easy to get Sandalphon off because we are going to be evolving so frequently. This thing's going to evolve very frequently in this deck. So it's quite an easy trigger, I think. And what has probably surprised me the most is how I thought Belial was going to be very, very difficult to get off. But I think in this particular build, Belial, I basically had Belial at Super Skybound out on like turn 8 in one match, and I think turn 12 is about when the actual effects is going to go off, right? The one turn kill, 20 damage. But you don't need it every game, and I just think this deck is beautiful because it's just got so much. It's got a lot of board pressure in the mid game. It's got multiple win conditions, and yeah, this version went on a 15 win streak at Master Diamond. So yeah, pretty fun to see these new archetypes popping up in the meta. Okay, so finally, on to Tier 1. So in Tier 1, guys, remember, it's early. It's only a couple of days in at the point of making this. But I think Ramp Dragon has significantly improved. The Storm, this is the Ramp Storm Dragon, and Storm was always pretty good. But I think that the new ramp card has made all the difference now, and the consistency of being able to ramp is pretty scary. I think Ramp Dragon, we've already seen quite a few people hit Grandmaster quite early on with this deck. So yeah, as far as I can see, it's looking like at the very least a sort of bottom end of Tier 1. We'll see how that develops in the coming weeks. Now, Lishesha Egg Portal, this is a Lishena Egg Portal. This is a massive change because I had this down in Tier 4. And honestly, I've not played Egg Portal much. I've just dabbled with it a little bit since this new set. It feels pretty powerful. It feels like one of the better control decks, but you're definitely going to need to know what you're doing with it. But absolutely has received some tools in this set that have just made, you know, spike the power level of it completely. So I'm really interested to see where Egg Portal lands. Maybe it will drop to Tier 2, but I definitely don't see it dropping below Tier 2 this season. Now, Wardhaven is in a really interesting spot because it received some cool buffs. It's hybridizing with Crest, so I've called it Wardhaven, but you can play it almost like a Crest Light as well. The new Galleon card is phenomenal. It's one of the best 3-drops in the game. It's just a joy to use. The big thing about Wardhaven, guys, is right now I think the entire meta is pivoting around this deck. So what I mean is that decks are being built, and if you can't deal with Wardhaven, the deck's probably not going to do well. So that's why Combo Roach isn't in Tier 1, for example. But I do think that decks can beat Wardhaven, but what I'm saying is that it's dictating the meta. This deck is, you know, people are building very much with this deck in mind. Now, Earthrune, we have a pro player, Parachan, who went on a 30 win streak with an Earthrune version, and since then it's popped up. Everybody's playing it. There's a few different variants, some with playing Rayo in there, but I'm going to show you his deck in a minute. This deck is really phenomenal. It's received some great new tools. So how cool is that, guys? We can finally play Runecraft Dirt version or Earth version without it just being spell boost all the time. Now, Loot Sword has received a couple of new tools, and it's still as powerful as it's ever been. I think many people are climbing high with Loot Sword. To me, it has one of the highest power ceilings, but it is a little bit inconsistent. I still think it relies heavily on Sincero drawing, but when it does, my God, it's a menace to any deck in the game. And you'll all be delighted to see that Spell Boost is still there at Tier 1. It hasn't lost anything. There hasn't been any nerfs, and actually, it's received a couple of new cards. I'm going to show you a version today that is again was being played by Parachan, who went on the 30 win streak with Earthrune. So I'm going to show you a version of his spell boost. There's a couple of new interesting techs in there. Right, let's jump into the decks then. So this is Ramp Dragon. As you can see, Zoe, 3 copies on Fanfare, ramps your max player points by 1. So now we've got that, Louis Feng, and the Dragon Sign. So ramp is so much more consistent now, and it's phenomenal. I'm playing Galmo in the 5 slot because I think, you know, the flexibility of this being a Storm card on 7 makes sense. We've got a lot of Storm in Forte and Odin, and then Wilmus is the brand new card. We've got 3 copies of that in there. Some decks just won't have an answer to it, and then you've got this giant 8/6 or maybe even 10-8 if you evolved it. Intimidate unit on the board. Gaiu's still one of the best targets for the Super Evo, and I think it's important to have an Azurfit. If you don't own this card, you can run the 9-drop Dragon, just to deal with those big Aether ward boards. This card is phenomenal at dealing with that. And then the cheeky Genesis Dragon it's just still there, guys, because with all this Storm, there's gonna be so many games where this just comes and wins you the game with a Super Evo. This thing's doing 12 damage, so it's in there. I do like the addition of Soaring Ivy Dragon, because the thing with this is you can play it out on turn 1 and you can actually get a fair bit of chip damage, like that into Megalorca, for example, can get a bit of chip damage. But obviously in the late game, it is just drawing into these absolute bangers, and because it only costs 1, if it's like turn 9, for example, you might draw that and then play Gaiu. So yeah, that is the Ramp Dragon deck. There's the QR code if you want to go ahead and play it. If you're enjoying this so far, guys, don't forget to hit that thumbs up for me down below. And next up, we've got Egg Portal. So Egg Portal, guys, has received a couple of new cards that have just added to it. So I've got one of the Catalina. We've got a couple of the Devotee of Destructions to help deal with board. Stonebreaker helps deal with the enemy board. So what we've got is just more clearing tools. The Chaos Legion, that 3 damage AoE becomes 6 damage AoE once we've got Super Bound Art or the Super Art off. Lyria is quite cheeky for playing up for getting out one of our late game cards. I just realized I'm actually missing the 9. This deck does actually run 3 copies of the 9-cost unit. I think I've cut this off on the image. Let me show you guys. Just a second. Egg Portal, here we go. Okay, here we go, guys. So this is the full version of it. Sorry about that. Yeah, so as you can see, we do actually run a couple of copies of Beelzebub. It's so clutch in this, because as you get your eggs on the table and they're doing 1 damage every other turn, obviously that suddenly becomes 2 damage from this. So this is just so good as a control deck, just chip healing away and chip damaging away, and I think Beelzebub just speeds that up as well. So yeah, really nice deck. Sorry I missed that off of the main one. Let's bring that back over here. There we go. All right, now we got the Wardhaven deck. So as I say, guys, this is the deck that is, I think, the whole meta is pivoting around. It's just phenomenal. You've got the crests in there with the Marwyn and the Congregant, and you've got the permacrests of the Grimnir and the Wilbert. So you could still, and then you got Supplicant that you can put in there for a countdown crest, right? So you can still get the value that you used to get from Cresthaven, but you're just constantly putting up walls. The Knight of the Holy Order, healing every time that gets played with buffed stats. Aether is absolute monster. Galleon, obviously, this card is so good. At the end of your turn, it just evolves one of your cards, and this is what's going to really help us to get Sandalphorn to invoke out the deck, and then we get that back in hand. And then there's so many ways to finish the game. Often it will be with a Sandalphorn, or it will be using Unholy Vessel, Super Evo in a unit that's already on the board, clearing their defense and then going face, or you just use Gian, and Gian's absolutely tailor-made for this deck because you've just always got loads of bodies on the board for Gian to buff, right? So it's just great, guys. I highly recommend this deck this season. I think if someone was like just wanting to craft one deck to play this season, I'd be very confident in this deck being very good all season. So yeah, let me know how you're getting on with Wardhaven. And next up, we've got Earthrune. This is the deck that Parachan went 30 wins in a row with. There's so many things in here that are generating the dirt for you to use, right? And then that means that your Lilanthium is really phenomenal in this deck, right? Because she comes on and you're gonna have like 8 dirt just stored up. Your opponent just can't get rid of it. It's just too good. And you've got obviously we've got the Edelweisses. in there. But Mirelle and Rosetta is, you want to give a shout out to this card. It is a phenomenal card, guys. I definitely give this card a 5 out of 5. I'll be doing my full card review actually very soon, so but expect to see this one getting a 5 because I think it's phenomenal. It's coming on basically at the cost of 2 Earthright. It's coming on as 2 5/5s with Rush, which is just absolutely insane tempo, right? And then you combine that with things like the Enchanting Perfumer, which always dealt 3 damage, and if you evo it, it's giving you +1 Earthright as well, sorry. Right, so this is now, for me, like a phenomenal tempo deck. It was just missing a couple of bits. And the fact that it's got Sandy as the finisher, that alt win con, is just so good because rather than running out of steam now, you've got Lilanthium and Sandy. It's one of the best tempo decks in the game. You've got things like Granangita, so you don't run out of steam. You've still got the heal that Spell Boost had in the 3 Sage-like Teachings and the Normans, right? And the card draw from the Witch New Brew. So this deck just kind of has it all, really. It's just phenomenal. I think this deck is super powerful and definitely deserves a slot in Tier 1. So hooray, we can finally play Rune in different ways. Good job. Next up, we got Loot Sword. Now, this is pretty standard to what we've seen in the past. However, what we have got is the new 4-drop, and that is what's basically, I think, making quite a big difference. I think that card... See, that was a part of the curve where it was always a bit awkward for Sword. If you were going second, yes, you could play Zirconia. But if you were going first, it was kind of a bit dead. And I think now having... replacing that mainly with those is a huge deal. I would say that a single copy of Zirconia is still good. You can drop that and play something like the Minotaur, the end game, to give you another powerful damage dealer once you've tableted and only got 1 copy of everything in the deck. So yeah, your choice really is Zirconia or that, but the rest of the deck's pretty self-explanatory. And yeah, this deck is super powerful. You really do want to be drawing that Sincero, but having the tablets in there obviously do help you draw through and find them. And Spell Boost Rune. I can hear you all booing. Well, before you do, the cool thing is that this has, even this deck has got a few updates, right? We have got the Alchemic Flare, which does 4 damage, and it gains an Earth Sigil, which is really powerful for 2, guys. I mean, it's just crazy. And if you've got Skybound out, you even do 2 damage to the enemy leaders. This card's absolutely packed with value, right? So I definitely think that the Alchemic Flare is a worthwhile addition. Obviously, it's a spell in itself, so it's triggering spell boost. The other big addition that is now in here is the Unleashed. And Unleashed is a 4-cost spell, so of course spell boost, but it actually has 2 modes, right? And the first mode is draw a card, deal 4 damage to a random enemy follower. That's okay, that's pretty good. But if you're prepared to essentially do 2 damage to yourself, you get to draw 2 cards, deal 4 damage to 2 random enemy followers. That is so busted. Now, obviously, against aggro, that 2 damage to yourself could make a big difference. So it could be a bit clunky in certain matchups. But my God, guys, deal 2 damage you don't care a hell about when you've got 3 Sage-like Teachings and 3 Normans most of the time. And draw 2, deal 4 to 2. Oh my God. This is... One of the weaknesses they used to have was the pre-Anangreaton. Not anymore. Not anymore. This deck looks absolutely rock solid. You don't need me to tell you about the Decline, Cocytus, and Q1 shenanigans at the end, but yeah. Spell Boost is still there, guys. Will you watch when people finish experimenting? This deck is going to be firmly there, right around the top of the meta. So that's everything, guys. I hope that was helpful. Took me quite a bit of work to pull all that together, but I always enjoy doing these. I hope that was helpful. Leave a like and a thumbs up, and definitely get involved in the comments section down below. Appreciate all the support as ever. Check out some of the guides and other stuff on the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Enjoy the new set.